Good afternoon. Thank you, Cassandra. Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Good,
Good to see you. Thank you for being here.
of course. Yeah, got bad news about avocados, but I'm gonna be okay.
What?
Avocados. So, people forget that we only grow food. Are you in Canada or the US?
I'm in the US.
Okay, so same, the US, we can only grow food certain times a year, right? We have
Yeah.
seasons, so we get a lot of our food from South America, our neighbors from any of our neighbors from the South, when it's not our season to grow food. Right, so we grow
Okay.
carrots in the US during a certain time, and then, because seasons change. Well, there's an issue in Mexico, so avocados aren't coming out of Mexico right now, and the US has stopped producing avocados. So the price of avocados this is what I have to study because I also own a restaurant.
No more guacamole.
There will be no
Okay.
guacamole for the next couple months.
And I see Claire's here and Melissa's kind of here, but not exactly here, I don't think.
I'm
Oh, there
here, but I'm driving and I will leave, like not by choice, at around 3:15 because of where I am location wise. So I don't want to interrupt. I'm going to listen.
Okay, and this is all being recorded, so we'll send it to you.
Okay,
So
perfect.
get your workbooks out and let's get started. But before we dive in, let's look at a little bit of quiz about where your presentation skills are currently. It's not graded. This is just for you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to grade yourself, 10 being the highest. All right? Do your visuals match the information that you're communicating? Do you think carefully about the message you want to send when you're preparing? Before presenting, do you become familiar with the space? Do you plan and practice your presentation until you can speak it comfortably? Do you assume your audience knows very little and give them enough information? Do you send indirect general messages to your audience? Do you make sure that the organizer prepares the equipment so that you can start on time? Do you encourage your audience to ask questions at the end? Do you pay attention, and we're going to talk about this, to nonverbal behavior to make sure you're staying engaged with your audience? And do you accurately time your presentation? So hopefully, this is the first time we presented this. We're rolling it out. So hopefully the timing will be good. All right, let's move on to the 4 key elements of effective presentations. First, understand your audience. The success of most presentations is judged by how your audience responds, not how you prepared it, not what you did with it, how your audience responds. So understand your audience, prepare your content. The only way you can satisfy your audience's needs and expectations is to deliver the content they want. If it's the content you want and it's not the content they want, you're going to lose them. Next, deliver confidently. You can create a need, convince the audience that there's a problem, and explain how it affects them, and persuade them that things need to change. That's how you get hired as a coach. You can define your solution by explaining what you think needs to be done. You can describe a detailed picture of success or failure and give the audience a version that they can see and hear and taste and touch. Make it a real experience for them. You can ask the audience to do something right away. Get them involved from the start. Get out your pencil, start taking a note, give them something to do. And then control your environment. You've got to practice. You've got to know what your setup is. You've got to test your timing. Control your environment. So, before I go any further, any thoughts, any questions? All right. The most common presentation mistakes. Not preparing enough. People can tell when you have not prepared enough. Careful preparation is essential. So start practicing early. You can never be too well prepared. Next mistake, not familiarizing yourself with the venue and the equipment. So conduct analysis and make sure you see what potential issues could be and have a plan B. Maybe you need an extra cord. Maybe you need to make sure that your battery is charged in your computer. Next, ignoring your audience. So first, it's a good idea to start by telling your audience what to expect. Let them know what you're going to cover first, and if you will be stopping for a break, let them know up front. Next, using inappropriate content. So do some research on your audience. Why are they there? What do they want to learn from you? Personalize your presentation to connect. like, hello, St. Louis, I'm glad to be here. Next. Being verbose. The average adult has a 15 to 20-minute attention span. So limit yourself to a few main points and ask yourself, does my audience really need to know this, or can I eliminate this? Using ineffective visuals. Poor slides can absolutely spoil a good presentation. So take care with your colors. Choose high quality pictures. I've said this before, a great book by Carmine Gallo, The Presentation Secrets of, now I just lost it. Apple, the head of Apple, Steve Jobs. And the name of the book is The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. And one of the things they point out was when he introduced the MacBook. And he had everything was black, and he had a black screen, and all it said was, what would it be like if you could have everything in a very small, compact place? Well, now you can. And he pulled the MacBook out of a brown manila envelope, and it stunned the audience. Keep it simple. Next, overcrowding text. Keep it simple. Never have more than 3 bullets on a slide and only a couple words. You don't want them reading your presentation. You want it to jog your memory and to let them know what you're talking about, but you don't want them reading it. Use pictures, use something else. Speaking incoherently. Don't rush. Breathe deeply. Enunciate each word. Showing a lack of dynamism. That can be tough. They're different. You've all seen different presenters. Some of them are enthusiastic and they jump around. Some of them are very quiet, but they still can be dynamic. So don't freeze in one spot. Don't stand behind a podium if you have notes there. Move around your area. Make contact with people. And then the final one, avoiding eye contact. When you meet someone's gaze, you establish a personal connection. And when you do that, don't just look and move and look. Linger there for a couple of seconds. Pick somebody out in the audience. That's how you will connect with people. All right. Let's talk, excuse me, about structuring the presentation. So what's the importance of structure? Well, without a defined structure, your audience may not be able to follow your presentation. And the factors that influence your choice of structure. Why are you doing this? What is your main purpose? Do you want to inspire them? Do you want to motivate them? Do you want to inform them? Do you want to persuade them? Do you want to entertain them? What is your purpose there? And you could maybe put all of those into one presentation, but make sure you know, are you there to motivate? Are you there to inspire? If you're there to sell coaching, you're there to persuade them. All right. So the open body conclusion presentation. These are different types of presentation. The open body conclusion. You have an introduction. You tell them what you're going to tell them. You grab their attention. Give them the key points. Intro. Next is the body of the presentation. That's where you tell them. This contains the key points, and it's backed up with facts. And don't give them too many points, 3 to 5 points. And then the conclusion. You tell them what you told them. You summarize the main points and give them specific actions. So that is a presentation structure. Another one is the sandwich approach. That's where you start with the advantages and benefits of your idea. Then in the middle, you give them the risk and concerns. And then you conclude with how they can benefit, how they can manage the benefit or eliminate them. It's a sandwich. So you start with the advantages, the risk, and then you put it all together and tell them how to get around it. Number 3, Monroe's motivated sequence to persuade. This one starts with getting their attention with a hook, like some shocking statistic. Did you realize that sales are down X number of %? Then you create a need by convincing them that there is a problem and how it affects them. Sales are down. How does that affect you? How is that affecting your income and your family? Then you define your solution. What needs to be done? Lead generate more. Find another way, find another group, and then describe a detailed picture of success or failure by giving them a vision. If you do this, yada, yada, if you don't do this, if you add another pillar to your lead gen, you're going to open up opportunity. If you don't do that, you may be out of the business. And then ask them to take action immediately. And then the final structure is the OBN. Opportunity, benefits, numbers. This is good for busy people to hear what you have to say in the shortest period of time. You give a quick summary of the opportunity. You outline the benefits. You show them the numbers and statistics to back up your claim about performance, about profit. The people I coach see a 20% increase in their production. And then you compare the cost of what you are doing with the predicted outcome, the ROI. When you enter coaching, you can expect to do this much more business that more than pays. One transaction will pay for your coaching. All right, how we doing? Thoughts, questions? No?
I have a lot of work to do.
Well, good. I'm glad this is hitting home. And all of these things, a lot of them are redundant. We're just telling you, showing you in a different way, but they're all really important.
I think the thing that I forget that may be helpful is if you say the hook first, like, if you're talking about VAs, for example, like, I'm here to sell you, I'm here to help you hire a VA, which will, what are you gonna say at the end? You should say, I feel like I should say it at the beginning as well. Like whatever the sales pitch is at the end, I feel like I should start with it as well. Because sometimes I get too much into the details and I don't need to. If I just say the sales pitch, because I do that in listing presentations. I sit down and I'm like, are we ready to sign? Right? And if they just are there, if I'm just there to sign the listing, I don't even do the presentation. I'm just signing the listing.
It's the tell them and tell them what you told them. Tell them, explain it, and then tell them what you told them.
Yeah,
That's
the one that
the sandwich. I think the sandwich is kind of cool, actually, because it gives you the opportunity to give the advantage and the benefits of your idea. Everyone can benefit from having a coach. Athletes have a coach. Executives have a coach. How can a coach benefit you? What if you don't have a coach? As your business grows, who will you bounce things off of? And then how the benefit will eliminate the risk. When you have a coach, you have someone, a seasoned professional, who can guide you through the problems. So that's 3 points. All right. let's talk about the presentation planning checklist. So we start with how to actually plan it out. Does your introduction grab attention and explain your objectives? One of those methods was something shocking. Once you've done that, do you follow by clearly defining the points of your presentation? You grabbed their attention, you explained why you were there, what you wanted to achieve, then you clearly follow it. Then, are these main points in logical sequence? Sometimes we have a lot of good information and we need to step back and see what is the best sequence to deliver this. Once you have the sequence, does it flow well? Does point 2 flow into point 3? And do those main points need support from a visual aid, a picture, something to really cement that? Next, does your closing summarize what your presentation did clearly and concisely, that you tell them what you told them? How strong is your conclusion? This is what they're going to walk away with. And the best way to make the conclusion strong is to tie it back to the introduction, where you grab their attention to begin with. So we started out with yada, 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 and then you've given it all to them. And now, can you see the importance of why we're discussing yada, yada, yada? Tie it all up with a bow. Let's talk about delivery. Are you knowledgeable about the topic? You know, I've always heard a great way to learn something is to teach it. Yep. There's like, but be knowledgeable about the topic. Do you have your notes in order? So I have what my slides are. And then I have my notes that I'm following. Are they in order? Where are you going to present? Are you going to present in person? Are you going to present on Zoom? Will you be standing up, sitting down at your desk? If it is off-site, have you visited it? You don't want to walk in blind. You may have to have them change the way the chairs are set up. Maybe you want classroom style. Maybe you want something in a big U. And have you checked all of your visual aids to make sure they're working and you know how to use them? I'm blessed because we've got Cassandra in the background here doing exactly what I need her to do. Make sure you're dressed and groomed appropriately and in keeping with the audience's expectation. Years ago, I, with a partner, owned 2 Remaxes. And one Remax, and they were only a few miles apart. And one Remax was in the county seat of St. Louis County, where the courthouse is and the attorneys are. And those agents dressed professionally with suits and whatever. The other office was in a casual community. And those people often wore jeans or really casual things. Know your audience so that you can dress to their expectation, always looking professional. And practice your speech. Practice it standing, sitting. Pay attention to your body language. Do it in front of a mirror. What is your posture? Because all of these things are what your audience is going to see. And even if your audience is one coaching client, watch how you do that. And then visual aids. Are they easy to read? Are they easy to understand? Again, don't use a lot of bullet points and words. Pictures are better. If you use a bullet point like this, use a word or two. Do your visual aids tie to the points that you're trying to communicate? And can they be seen from all areas if you're in a room? Nothing's more frustrating to your audience than trying to look around to find out what you're doing. Okay, how are we doing? All right, next up. How do you persuade? There are 4 ways to persuade people: logic, pathos, ethos, and style. Those are the 4 elements of persuasion. Logic. A logical explanation of your outlook states your interpretation of the facts, and it constructs an argument bringing these to a conclusion that matches your expectation and that of the audience. Logic. It makes sense. If you do more lead generation, you have more opportunity. It's logic. Pathos appeals to the psychological or emotional responses of your audience. I learned many, many years ago, when logic and emotion go up against each other, emotion always wins. Always wins. Ethos, that creates persuasion arising from the reputation and influence of the speaker. So a question to ask yourself is, how do you present your credentials? What are your credentials? How do you present them? If you're standing in front of an audience, you are the expert. They want to know. They want to know you've done it or you know how to do it. And then finally, style. Because style is what creates the lasting impression based on your words, your delivery, your body language, and your confidence. So let's pause here for a minute and think about how you present. Do you use all of these? Do you use some of these? Is there one that does not fit for you? What do you think? Any thoughts?
I think reputation is the one that holds me back a little bit, because a lot of times, especially when I'm coaching people that may be more successful than I have been. And so it's a limiting belief that I can't, especially on my team, if my production is down and someone's production is up, I find that they take less, they weigh my opinion lower at that point.
Do you think they weigh your opinion lower, or Mitch, do you weigh your opinion lower?
I think it's a combination of both. There's specific people on my team that will weigh it lower. They're like, they want you to show them how it's done and not tell them.
So give me, when you think of great coaches, great sports coaches, give me a couple names.
Well, Jerry West just died, and he was a great coach, but he's also the logo of the NBA, right? He proved that this is what it took. He is the outline of. So I think that's somebody. I think when I was growing up, that the Dodgers coach was, Tommy Lasorda. But, I know coaches that I was not very good at water polo, and I was a great water polo coach.
Have
So,
you ever heard of Phil Jackson?
Of course, yeah.
He won 12. He has a great book called 12 Rings. He didn't play basketball. Who was the great coach out of the University of California? really cool guy, beloved by so many people. I can't think of his name. And he always started out with, gentlemen, let's learn to put on our socks.
Yep. I can't remember his name either, but I remember being told about him.
Let's put on our
I want to be
socks.
I want to be Ted Lasso. Like if I'm going to be a really great coach, I want to be Ted Lasso. I know he's not real. I get it. Except he didn't know the first thing. And I know it's a story, but he didn't know the first thing about soccer.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
that's if I'm going to be a great coach, that's the kind of coach I want to be.
So an example, a personal example, and this is kind of a off the subject, but on the subject. So many, many years ago, I was asked to coach the 5th grade girls volleyball team. All the kids were getting into soccer, but not everybody wanted soccer, and they used to have a volleyball team, so they wanted to still have a volleyball team. And this was for the local Catholic church, and the priest there was a good friend of mine. So he came to me one day and he said, guess what? You are coaching the 5th grade girls basketball team, volleyball team. I said, I can't do that. He said, why? I said, I don't know how to play volleyball. And he gave me a book. So we would meet each week to learn to play volleyball, and I would be one chapter ahead. I never played volleyball, but I would tell them what to do. We got to the week that we were learning to serve, and one of the girls said, Mrs. Brown, will you show us how to do that? And I said, girls, I'm not here to do this for you. I'm here to teach you how to do it. You don't have to have done it to be able to coach it. Water polo, you don't have to have done it. And we oftentimes, we talked in the last couple of weeks about comparing yourself to other people and what that does to your self-esteem. So don't think you have to have done it to be able to coach it. And many people have, but not everybody. Vince Lombardi, gentlemen, this is a football. He wasn't a great football player, but he was a great coach. So put yourself in that mindset. All right, any other thoughts about logic and pathos and ethos and style? I think you have to have a little bit of all of it.
No, for sure.
I think you need to be able to read the room as to when it's appropriate to bring out certain parts of it. You know, you can't bring out logic when everybody's in a heightened emotional state. Or maybe you should, I think you need to be able to read the room to know when it's appropriate for whatever it is that you do.
Good point. When they are highly emotional, that's where you put logic in.
Yeah.
If they're really stuck on the logic, you got to bring some of that emotion in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you have to know your audience and read the room.
Is it appropriate though? Like if we go back, one of the things you said was, know what your audience expectations are and everything. And I know that when I coached a team, it was different than what I do now. Like I managed a team more than I coached it. And I had to double back because I was coaching to what I thought was appropriate and it was getting everybody else frustrated. So is it appropriate when you're tackling something in PC coaching, like a big group, and you said, okay, so this week we're going to cover open houses. What is one thing everybody wants to learn about open houses, and adjust your curriculum accordingly? Because I'm always worried that they're going to take me down this rabbit hole that is not appropriate.
So great question. You've been in trainings with the flip chart, and they start out and they say, what do you hope to learn today? And they write it all down and what everybody hopes to learn today. So it's a way to find out what their expectations are. The other way to approach it is to tell them what to expect. And then you could follow up with, am I missing anything here that was important to you?
Okay. Because I'm teaching follow-up tonight to a group of people, and it's going to be very systems oriented to start with. because I need to remove this whole ambiguity of when do I follow up? Because that is what is stopping the majority of them. I've got to create this structure for them where they can adopt a consistent environment. However, I do know a lot of the questions will be, well, what do I say?
Are these
And
your
that's
S
not what I want to
people?
focus on today.
Are these your S people?
Mhm.
Your group of
Mhm.
high S's?
Yes.
They've got to have the emotion before you put
Yeah.
in the logic. How would you feel if you talk with someone about purchasing a car and they had your information and then they never called you to see what you were thinking? How would that make you feel? How would you feel if you were overlooked? Just how would you feel? And then you bring them
I get it.
into the logic of the systems. And
Yep.
that's your big start. How would you
Okay.
feel if you come up with a circumstance?
Okay. All
How
right.
would you feel if
That's a
you
good
were
example. Yeah. I like that.
and you walked into an open house and you told the agent holding the open house that you really, really liked it? And you might want to bring your husband back to see it, and you give them the information and they never call you.
Mhm.
How would you feel?
Okay. I get it. Okay. Yep. That works really great. I love that. Thank you.
I had
You're-
an aha in your S group yesterday, Claire, and it was like, oh, we finally have gained their trust.
Mhm.
Like they just because oh, Judy, it was rough. Those first couple of weeks we were working with them, like they just were like,
I know.
and
It
just
is so
nothing.
hard.
It was 40 versus 1 of like no one wanting to talk. And to like today's class, like they were very engaged. They had questions. They were
They're
like,
coming along.
they're right. So I realized that was like, oh, so with an S personality, I have to win them over before they'll learn.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Start with the feelings. Start with the
Which is-
how would you feel? And then translate that into what you're doing.
Right.
Okay. That's a really good recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So creating effective presentation visuals. As I mentioned before, Steve Jobs was just an expert with this. He knew that the slides that were most effective tell a story rather than give information. So his visuals were simple, they were elegant, and they were images, and they told a story. So remember, simplicity speaks volumes. A picture's worth 1,000 words, since the human brain processes information more effectively when it's accompanied by images or short, memorable statements. I'm going to say that one again. A picture is worth 1,000 words, since the human brain processes information more effectively when it is accompanied by images or short, memorable statements.
Mhm.
Being consistent. A common mistake in being consistent is choosing different colors and different fonts for things that you're doing, whether it's your visuals, it's your PowerPoint, it's your handouts. Be consistent. Choose your colors carefully, because they're going to affect the mood and the tone of your presentation. Bright colors convey energy, darker colors are more serious. So think about that. And cloud-based presentations tools have features that might be new to the audience and engage them. So see what's out there, see what you can do to make it creative, to make it engaging. Next, we just talked about this. Consider your culture. And generally speaking, not your S group, but generally speaking, you're going to have a little bit of everything. So when you're thinking about that, make sure you have something that appeals to each of those discs. But remember, slang can cause confusion. The first seminar I ever went to. I can still see the guy. And this was, by the way, like 1971. And his name was Ronald McDonald. His real name was Ronald McDonald. And he was talking to a group of realtors. And he said, we have a tendency to use words that maybe don't have the same connotation to the public. And then he said, if you are talking to someone who's a sea captain, a sailor, and you say listing, and he went to the side, what are they thinking of? If you are talking to a funeral director and you say closing, what comes to mind? We do that with MLS and words like that. So not everybody in your audience may be conversant with our terms. FSBO. We may use that easily, but somebody newer might go, huh? Again, use pictures and images that appeal to culturally diverse groups. You're talking about your S's. So what pictures, what would appeal to them? Think about that. What do you think would?
Oh, they helped us break ChatGPT today.
They did. Well, so I actually had a conversation with their leadership this morning, and I'm not going to lie, like we have a really big tackle that you and I, Judy, will talk about on our one-on-one, but they're all Eurasian. They're all from India. And they're like, we know we need to start converting outside of our own cultural demographic. We don't know how. And I looked at them and I said, you may as well be asking me to offend you, because like, how do I, like, it's going to be a very sensitive conversation.
I have a question for
So-
you.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. No, I'm listening.
Have you studied their culture enough to know what would be offensive?
Well, and this was the conversation was a lot more complex that I'm giving them, but I said to them, I said, listen, I cannot tell you what it's like to be a male Eurasian realtor. I can only tell you from my perspective and my reality. So we are going to need to collaborate to figure out how to overcome this. I said, the thing is if you don't, you are capping your business. You are leaving money on the table. So you are far better off figuring this out than leaving it alone. However, you know, it's going to be a sensitive conversation between us, because I'm going to tell you generalizations. We can only talk in generalizations and stereotypes. And that is not necessarily true. And yet you're going to have to overcome those. So how are we going to change people's idea of who your agents are?
So I'm married to, I don't know if you know this, Claire, Justin is half Indian. His father's Indian.
Yes, I know.
his father- Okay, and so Justin has a problem sometimes, and what I've learned about with Indian men, especially when they're talking to women, is that they're too direct.
Mhm.
Right? Sometimes they're too direct and it comes off as condescending. We sent Justin to a comedy improv class so he could learn how to loosen up a little bit. Right? Because the thing we all have in common is pop culture. So the way you kind of break those barriers is by being a little less stringent in how you say things. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that goes to using pictures and images that appeal to diverse groups. So maybe pop culture is where you look for some of those images to cement your point. Have you ever heard of CIPS, CIPS?
No?
Certified International Property Specialist.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
And the CIPS training, which is really stringent, goes into some of those customs that we might not know are offensive.
Mhm.
So I went to Japan as part of a small group of Missouri realtors to meet with the counterpart in Japan and in Tokyo. And some of our training was how not to offend them. We hosted the Korean delegation here, and we had to be trained that when you present a business card, there's a very specific way to present a business card. This way or this way. And how to take the card. So you present it with your fingers up, you take it with your fingers down. Those are little things, but cultural, I don't know what you would call it, things like that can really make or break building that rapport.
Yeah.
And then keeping your graphics and phrases simple and use images to replace bullet points and sentences. That's one of the biggest things. And of course, everything I've got is here is a bullet point, right? But using something other than bullet points, and even these bullet points aren't just bullet points. Use your images intelligently. I talked about when Steve Jobs unveiled the MacBook Air, and instead of giving the dimensions, it's 12 by 8, and it's, you know, a half-inch thick and whatever, to show how small it was. He demonstrated it by putting it into a manila envelope. Think about the picture rather than the detail. In thoughtful images, keep your audience engaged. They reinforce your professionalism and they make a lasting impression. Next, break complex data down. Don't put large chunks of information on a slide. If you have a lot of detail, have the topic and maybe have a handout that gives additional information. Have a place that they can get the additional information, but don't put it all up there because all they're going to do is sit there and read or get confused. And once again, keep it simple. Each slide should only have one idea or concept. Keep text to a bare minimum, 10 words or less. Use an image to convey a message rather than words anytime you can. Each slide should take 3 seconds or less to process. If it takes more than 3 seconds, you've lost them. Avoid bulleted list whenever possible. To simplify your wording, highlight the key word in every sentence. That's a little known technique and it's very powerful. Avoid decorating slides with logos or patterns that could distract attention, as you see the hugs and kisses coming down the side here. But this is for us. So don't distract them. And consider while you're doing this to insert a blank slide for a pause or to get their attention refocused. Instead of slide after slide after slide, consider the blank one. Prepare. When you practice your presentation, prepare. You should be able to glance at each slide and know exactly what it is. And those slides are also a cheat sheet for you. All right. Homework. Before we get there, what did you take away from this that you didn't know that is going to be important?
Two things. One of them I knew, but one of them I hadn't really thought of. First of all, I need to prepare more. Like, you know, Mitch and I come on here every day, 5 days a week. And more often than not, I'd say I'm not prepared. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. Probably not the best thing to be doing. So I need to prepare more. And I knew that. The thing that I didn't know though was I think I need to engage the room more as to what their expectations are from the class in some way, shape, or form, either by setting the expectation or inquiring about what their expectations are. And that way I will feel more comfortable concluding the session as opposed to dragging it on to see what else somebody might want to know, because I'm just not sure if I've delivered everything I'm supposed to. It gives
Well,
me
wait a-
clarity as well.
A way to get around that, by the way, is to say you're setting expectations right up front. So to say, at the end of this, please hold your questions, write them down, and at the end, I want to go over any questions you might have. And that's a really good way to conclude it, is to say, do you have any questions? And you say these people don't share. Who would like to share an important point they're walking away with? What I would say to you though, Claire, it's a question. Do you need to, or do you
Okay.
intend to?
Oh, darn it. Oh,
You
I've
know
been
how
doing
many
so
times
good
you
too,
said
Judy.
need? You said need with
I
every
know.
sentence, more than once in a sentence. You need, you need, you need. I will, I intend to, I'm going to.
I
You
am
don't-
committed. I am committed to getting more buy-in and more planning as to what the goal of the session is, so I can conclude with confidence and move on like I've tied everything up. There we go. Thank you.
Oh, I
Call
like
me out
that.
on it.
Mitch, anything from you?
I have not been I do this periodically where, especially in our daily call, where I'll be like, what are you going to implement? I feel like I do it the best on our Friday session where I'm like, what did you learn this week and what are you going to implement? And maybe we need, I will be doing this daily now, like implement this, like write down what you're going to implement that you learned today. So I have noticed the more I'm coaching, and again, it's calling out things I do, for example, is we write these notes, we say we're going to do this, we say that's a great idea, and then I've gotten 7 phone calls while we've been on this thing. So I jump on the call right after I get off, and then I never look at that piece of paper again until I throw it away 6 months ago from now. And so, getting people to implement right away. I do have a problem with, what do you want to get out of this? I think that question needs to be a little bit more specific, because that gives them rein to ask questions, that are too far-fetched. Because one of the things with coaching is everyone thinks coaching is like on demand. Like, I'm having this issue right now, answer this question right now. And it can derail us when we're trying to discuss, we're here to talk about this, and everybody's signed on to talk about this, and now you're asking us this question over here. Today, I was able to put in the chat, we had someone in the group that she was asking a question that wasn't related to what we were doing, and I was like, we'll talk about it after the class, right? And put the class back on track. So
You
just
make
more
a
of that.
great point, and I will tell you personally, I am not, and I think I'm a certified trainer. I think I'm a pretty good trainer, but I am not that trainer that can stand up there and write on a flip chart all the things that people say they want to get out of this class. And that's not for a 45-minute to an hour presentation. That's for a half-day class. However, if you don't figure out how to get all those points, then why did you ask anyway? So I would agree with you on that. I'd much rather tell them, and then keeping them on track, which can be so difficult. Sometimes it is herding cats. You just said it, Mitch. That's not what we're here to talk about today. However, I'd be happy to talk with you after the fact. Today, we're talking about open houses. So if you have a question about a listing presentation, see me afterwards.
When Claire talks about being prepared, I think, a lot of what we're teaching now is in Sean's voice. and the way Sean would present them. And it's taking me a little while to adjust to, this isn't how I would teach this. So
I want to be contrary to Sean. However, what I'm going to tell you is that you will be 10 times more effective if you take the same information and deliver it in your style than you will ever be delivering in somebody else's style.
Well, and that's where I'm like, okay, like, and I think I'm doing a much better job. When I first was substituting for Claire a couple months ago, she went somewhere and left me for weeks at a time. And I was followed, like, I could feel myself stumbling. I could feel this wasn't right. And matter of fact, someone complained to Sean, and Sean had to step in and sort of help a couple days. But now I think I have found that medium. But I think for sure, like when you asked the very first question, I was just like, there, I said, you said, how good are your skills? I said, when I prepare, I'm a 9. When I'm not prepared, I'm a 7. Right? Like that was the first things I wrote when you first started this. So it's just taking, especially in those morning classes, taking an extra 15 minutes to like, because I'll literally print it as I'm logging on.
And when
Like,
you're
here we
doing
go.
it, you want to come across as confident, and you will be much more confident in your own voice than in Claire's voice or Sean's voice or Judy's voice. It's the same information.
Well, after coaching with Claire now for 7 or 8 months, our voice is becoming one.
Oh, well, that's good for consistency.
That when she told me she might be leaving the daily call, I was like, uh-oh.
So the homework I came up with, which this is going to go back in pardon me, the basics, we had 8 modules, and I just wrote 9 and 10. So I hope this was good for you all. And the homework for this was to create a visual presentation and send it to me before the workshop next week. And share your biggest challenge. So let me ask you, because this is, I said, this is for the bigger group. Do we need a workshop, or would we rather just do this and then do one-on-ones?
This is my first time, so I don't really have an opinion.
This is the first time we've done this. Normally, we have one-on-ones, and then we come together as a group and we talk about your challenges and work through those. So this is the first time that we have done a module, because it's the first time it's come out. And I thought it was really important information. You all did the other 8 modules. I wanted you to have 9 and 10. But that having, yes.
When you say workshop, what does that look like?
Well, if you remember from the basics, we would go through the module, and then we would come back and have a workshop with an action item, and then talking about that action item. And that was with a bigger group. And I'm okay either way.
I think the one-on-one and then coming back might work better for.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not, to tell you the truth, I'm not entirely sure.
And instead of thinking of it as a workshop,
Because
it would be a group after this, and then the one-on-ones. And we only have 2 of these modules, and we will be group and one-on-one. So this could come
Okay.
up in a group, but you don't have to create the visual presentation.
well, see, that's one of the things, like Camille, for Endgame at least, Camille creates all of our visuals for us. Like, we don't have to do it,
Yeah,
right?
and Sandra does
So-
mine.
Yeah, so I don't like we don't have to do it, but I do think one of the things that we do need to be aware of is, as we go to this roster format, we are creating our own classes, right? Like, and so we're going to be, to some degree, creating our own visuals or our own how to present our own subject matter, like how to break it down. I've done this because I created the power room sessions for the first 6 months. I've done this before. I just don't know if that's something Melissa and Mitch want to go over.
Well, in
Because
our
for all
next
intents and purposes,
session is, module 10 is building your roster.
yeah,
And that's
So-
what we're gonna focus on. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we're not gonna call it a workshop. I'm thinking that we're gonna we did the module. Next week we'll do a group. And then we'll do our one-on-ones. I have a one-on-one with Mitch tomorrow, and you all just had one-on-ones. So I'm gonna change it up.
Yeah.
And it'll be our group next week, and then it'll be our one-on-ones. And then I'm gonna do the next module, the final module 10, about building your roster. And we'll have a group and one-on-ones, and then we'll just be group and one-on-ones.
okay, I'll follow your lead.
I
Flexible that
just want to make sure you all are walking away with value.
way. Absolutely. Oh, Judy, like just your glowing presence is offering value. Absolutely, we're fine.
Who was a great presenter who, when somebody would say something like that, he'd go, "You're my favorite." And then the next person gave a compliment, "Oh, now you're my favorite." So you're all my favorite.
I don't know who that was, but they were smart.
So it'll be the same time, and we'll send out the information, and I will tweak all this.
Okay.
And next week we'll come together, but we will talk about the challenges and what tips you actually implemented and how you felt after you did that. That's going to be the subject matter next week.
Okay. That
So
works for me.
Go implement.
So are we to bring, next week, am I supposed to bring a presentation or no?
No, we're
Okay.
going to take that off because, as you say, they do it for you. And so this would be for the bigger group. What I want to do next week in our group is, what did you try? How did it work or not work? And if it didn't work, how can we make it better and make it work? Fair enough?
Yep,
Thank you all. Thank you
absolutely.
for being here. I really appreciate
Judy,
you.
you're the best.
That makes me feel
you and I are gonna
so good.
you and I are gonna have an interesting one-on-one next time because my high group of S's is getting interesting. In a good way, though.
They're staying engaged though. I'm like, the daily calls, there's people there. We're not talking to the same 4
Yep.
people, versus
They're there. Yeah.
my group, I'm down to 3 in my
Well,
private.
my other groups, I'm down as well. But I honestly, I really believe that it's the accountability that their leadership has put in place. Also, though, I've onboarded this office very differently than I've ever onboarded any other office.
So
Just saying. The
So,
onboarding has been very different and it's maintained a lot of engagement.
mhm.
So,
Well, and we can bring this up. I wanted to engage Melissa as well next week in our group. However, these challenges and tips to overcome them, bring some of those from the S group.
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, I can tell you right off the bat, I essentially adapted what we refer to as cash talk at Keller Williams when you're onboarding an agent. And I did that model for the leadership of the brokerage. So for the first month, I spoke to them 3 times a week. And I asked the same questions each time. What knowledge are you getting? What knowledge are you looking for? What skills are you getting? What skills are you looking for? And I used the same thing each time. And it allowed me to participate in the onboarding beyond just delivering the content. And it kept them very, very engaged. And it meant that we're having a lot of synergies between their culture in their office and what I'm teaching them in their group coaching.
Once
Which
you
is
have
great.
them engaged, that's a first step. You have to have them
Yeah.
engaged. That's how you gain their trust and their attention. So I'm going to let you guys
Yeah.
go. We're a little bit
Yeah.
over. Thank
Will
you
do.
again. And I'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.